So we have just finished learning how to calculate population statistics, population math. So let's look at some things that are going to impact population growth, specifically the total fertility rate. So remember, okay, right here, the total fertility rate is the number of children per woman. Okay. Now, as I alluded to in the previous video, the total number of children a woman has is directly correlated to their education levels. Okay, so that's what this graph is showing you. So you have total fertility rates, you have female secondary school enrollment rate. This is not college, this is high school. Okay, high school. So you can see the total fertility rate increases with less education that is given to the woman. The total fertility rate decreases the more education a woman gets. Okay, so we say that the TFR is affected by the age the female is at the birth of their first child. Hopefully this makes sense to you guys. Okay, so if you look at more of the developing countries, okay, so developing means that they're not as economically secure. They rely on children in the workforce. They have lots of kids to ensure that they have workers to help with the family and to work on the farmland. And then you have more developed countries on this end that have access to more education and birth control than some of the less developed countries do. Okay, so we know that so the TFR is affected by the age the female is at the first birth or the birth of their first child. So we know that if there is access to family planning or birth control, the fertility rates are going to go down. And in developed countries, such as the United States, we have access to family planning. So that is why we have a lower fertility rate than locations like Ethiopia, Cambodia, Kenya, etc. They do not have ready access to family planning. Okay. Also, things that are going to lower the total fertility rate are government policies. One country successfully implemented something like this, and this was China. China had the one-child policy because their population growth was exploding. It has slowed down because they had the one-child policy in place for a few decades. They have since done away with this one-child policy, but it was so ingrained in their culture for so many years that most people in China still only have one child. Okay. All right. So let's look at these images right here. So here we have the life expectancy. All right. So you can see in developed countries like the United States, there's Europe, Australia, our life expectancy is very high, 75 and above. And this is because we have betterments in healthcare and access to it. Okay? If you live in a less developed country, you do not have access to great health care, and so the life expectancy, as you see in several countries in Africa, is going to be much lower. So they tend to die of more things that can be prevented in more developed countries. Okay? Now, the other thing we look at is the infant mortality rate. Okay? So this is less than the age of 1 year. So an infant is considered less than 1 year of age. And so the infant mortality rate is also higher in developing countries. Okay? This is also impacted by access to health care and nutrition for the mother. Okay? So impacted by access to health care and good nutrition. So where those things are readily available, the infant mortality rate is much lower. Where they're not available in our developing countries, there's India, developing country, the infant mortality rates are much higher. All right, so let's look at population pyramids. Population pyramids show the age distribution based on gender. So here we have male versus female. Okay, so the males are going to be in blue, the females are going to be in this greenish color. And then here are the ages. This is the percentage they make up of the population. Okay, so when we look at developing versus developed countries, we can see there is a big difference. So the Democratic Republic of Congo, this would be considered a developing country. United States and Germany, they are going to both be developed. All right, so you can see that the population pyramids are very different between the two types, developing and developed. So in a developing country, we say that the base is very large. So here's our base, okay, and the base is quite large. That means that the majority of the population is younger and within the age of reproduction. So we have a higher number of younger people okay. It also means that we have more people giving birth. Okay, so lots of young people, lots of babies being born here. Okay, now we have the United States, and then we have Germany. Okay, so there is a difference between these two. They are both developed countries, but there is a difference. So the United States, we say, has slow growth. This is also going to be stable growth. Okay, so you can see there is a pretty even distribution among the age groups until you get to about this point right here. Okay, so we have more of an equal distribution. Okay, so we have almost equal distribution across age groups. And remember, guys, this is because we have access to healthcare, access to family planning, and so women aren't getting married young and having kids. They're choosing to wait longer. They're going to school, they're going to college, they're getting educated Some of them may not even get married until much later in life. So there isn't a need to have children like there would be in a more developing country. All right, negative growth means that the population is shrinking. And the reason is because the majority of your population is older. So you have a higher proportion at the top where the age groups are older. So you have a higher number of older people past childbearing years. Okay. Now, when we look at the crude birth rates, okay, so this is the number of children born per 1,000 people. The crude birth rate for the Democratic Republic of Congo is 42. That's really high. The crude birth rate for the United States is 14. So not too bad. And then the crude birth rate for Germany is 8. So that's why their population is shrinking. Now the national, or the, I'm sorry, not the national, the global crude birth rate is 20. So this is an average of every country in the world that we have data on. So you can see that developing countries like Congo are much higher, and developed countries or industrialized countries like the United States and Germany are below that global average.